So here we are, beginning of 2026. And, I really wanted to spend some time talking about what we all experienced last year, 2025, and how that's transitioning into this year, 2026. The GTA market is, I would say, different, different for sure, a little strange, and a lot of surprises. Well, at least a lot of surprises for me. And so I thought maybe we could just talk a little bit about what you guys are experiencing last year in the marketplace that really surprised you and what you're finding this year.
Okay, so I'll go first. So what surprised me most about the market last year and up till now really is how much this market mirrors the 1989 market and exactly how that market played out because 1989 was the peak and then it started to go down and I think I'm not sure I was licensed in 89, I think you guys were too, but that whole market is it's being exactly mirrored. It's a mirror copy of what happened in that market, minus maybe a couple of other different things because of different regulations, but it's exactly the same market that I'm seeing. That's what surprised me the most, how similar it is and how everything has just gone back to basics and how do we move forward from there? And it really is just it's the same market and it's just a mirror image. That's my biggest surprise.
And there are a lot of similarities with 1989 because I think 1989 things were just before that things were moving along and it was like overnight the market just tanked. And I think we can see the same thing here. We had COVID, which was an anomaly, and the market went crazy. It wasn't normal in any way. And then all of a sudden it was shut off and things you could see it in the market, like, almost immediately, there was a huge change in it. So, yes, I agree with you, and interest rates in that market also played a big point or a big part, as did the prices falling, and people who had bought earlier, were now underwater, right? And so we're seeing that here as well.
So not only like that part of it, just the whole recovery of what we're seeing happen in this recovery is very similar to the recovery that we saw back in that market. It's the same. The process has been exactly the same.
Yeah, and I think that, a lot of people expected it to be over quicker, and we know that in 1989, it really took till closer to the 2000 for the market to regain the sort of robust market that we had back then. So I think what we have to look at is the transition, between the height, coming down to where we are now and put that with the interest rates, and then actually add in all of the people who are going to renew their mortgage and be renewing at a higher rate. So there's a lot of things just like in 89, but maybe even a few added things that we didn't have in 89, like the stress tests that we didn't have then, and things like that, that all are coming into play. And I think that's really what is holding people back because there are so many things that are affecting them in different ways.
Right, and I think the other thing too that was a big surprise to me is, after COVID, when the interest rates went higher, and then last year they started coming down. Consistently, they were coming down, and even though the rates were coming down, it didn't trigger a change in the marketplace. The buyers weren't like, "Oh my god, the rates are coming down, so I'm gonna buy now." And I think a lot of that has to do with the mindset that people have. A lot of people were saying, I think I can just wait now. There's no urgency. During COVID, there was this big urgency. If I don't buy today, tomorrow it's going to cost me a whole lot more. So let's just get in. Let's just get in at any price. Let's just, you know, go crazy on this bidding thing. And now it's like totally different. So they're like, oh, well, prices are coming down and, every month they're seeing lower prices. And we know that the stats were just released that now in the GTA, the average price of a detached home is under 1,000,000, which is the lowest it's been in quite some time. So they're just saying, "I can wait now. I can wait."
And you know what though? That part of it is exactly what we saw back in that market as well, is that it seems like everyone wants the social proof that things are getting better. And what we saw the recovery, in my opinion, that started back then was when we started hearing, now we're talking about newspapers. So I'm just going to say like the news or headlines were that things are starting to sell and now the market is shifting and we've hit the bottom and prices are starting to go up. And that's when people jumped back into the market. And I feel like that's exactly what's going to happen here. We need to start hearing some stories about, that there are multiple offers starting again, because there are. Now, don't get me wrong, they're not going way over market value and the prices are not getting out of control. However, we are starting to see some multiple offers in the lower price ranges in certain cities. And until we start hearing it in the news, because that's when it's going to start to turn around, when people feel like other people are starting to buy, because there's this mentality that everybody wants the social proof that somebody else is doing it, and that's unfortunate. But the brave ones will get in now. They'll realize, or they'll talk to a professional to understand exactly what is going on, because I think what we're hearing out there is not what's going on. Like, we have to take the condos, and specifically the low price condos, that small condos that nobody wants, out of those equations, and these numbers will be very different.
I also think that one of the things that happened at the end of last year was that we did start to see a little bit of more confidence. There were a little bit more sales. Sales in the last quarter of last year were actually starting to peak up again. And then when January turned around and Trump came into power, I think that everybody sort of took a step back, because for maybe 1 or 2 months then we really didn't have any idea what was going to happen. So I think we were starting to get on a better footing, and then that just derailed us. And we all know that what happens in the news lags what we're already seeing, right? So we could see that in the last quarter it was getting a little better, but it didn't get around so that the newspapers or the radio was reporting it. So I agree that that's always when the market starts to get going. And yes, by that time we've already hit the bottom and it's turned around. So a lot of people will lose out by trying to time the bottom.
Right. And I think you're right. For last year, this whole Trump and tariff thing was kind of just thrown at us. We weren't expecting it. We were expecting the market to do much better. But when people are uncertain, they are paralyzed. And rather than fearing of doing a mistake, they do nothing. And you're right, Sandy. I think they just sort of sit back and say, let's see what's happening. Let's see what everybody else is doing. And then when everybody else is like good, then I should be good too, because maybe they know more than I do. And I think when you're buying real estate, it really, at least for a personal reason, like a house, not as an investor, you're buying it for your own reasons. To what's important about buying a house to you? Like, is it for your lifestyle? Is it for, a foundation for your family? Is it because you want to be able to do whatever you want? So take all that other stuff out, see if it's right for you and if you can afford it, and make your own decision, and make sure that that decision is not like a 1 or 2 year decision. uh, I think, and I've really been reiterating it with people that I'm speaking with now, just, when you're buying, it's not like COVID where you buy today and it's worth thousands of dollars more tomorrow. It's real estate is a gradual increase, but over the long term, it's always been good, right? It's like the stock market, but it's something you be tangible with. So look at it at a long term, and if it's right for you, then consider it. And we don't know when the bottom is. We don't know when the top is. Same thing. So it has to be a personal when it's right for you, I think.
And nor should it go up like that. Like, I don't think any of us enjoyed that market where you couldn't estimate what a house was going to sell for, right? Like, there was a time where we had a lot of multiple offers, but you could sit down with your client and you could say, like, okay, they've priced it at this. It's going to sell in this price range because that's what the other houses have sold for. And 9 times out of 10 you were correct. But then it started to get out of control where it was like, what? Like, the house down the street sold for, whatever, a million today. And 3 weeks later, this similar house is selling for 1,000,001. There was no rhyme or reason at that point for what the prices were. There's no backup. So that part was that was, I mean, I didn't enjoy that. I don't think any of us enjoyed that. I much prefer this type of a market where a buyer can make a good conscious decision and, get a financing clause in there and do a home inspection and check out the things that they need to check out and have some selection, like have more than a few houses to go and take a look at. I think we all prefer that market.
Right, and that's really what is available right now. We know that inventory levels are up. We know that prices are down. We know that interest rates are down. We know that now, they can also have, like you said, the opportunity to have a little bit of time on their side, to do their due diligence, to have conditions, and yet the buyers just aren't feeling that confidence that they need to feel to move
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah, it is buyer confidence. I think it is a lot of it's just the buyer confidence, right? But is the inventory like there's some we have some buyers in some ranges that there's not a lot of inventory. Now, there probably will be more in the spring, but right
Mm.
now they're in some areas and some like types and prices of houses, there isn't a whole ton of inventory.
No, you're right, and I think that's because last year there was a big, rise in inventory, and most of those properties were taken off the market just before Christmas, or they expired at the end of the year, and then we had January, which was, like, just this horrible weather, and not to blame everything on the weather, but it absolutely played a part in it, and people are just saying, "I'm just gonna wait till the weather gets a little bit better, and then I'll put it on," and we know for me, I find a lot of people say, "I'm gonna wait till the spring," so that people can see my garden and everything else. But what they don't realize is they're not really buying your garden, they're buying the structure of your house, right? And so it's nice to see the garden and everything there, but the winter also enables them to see other things about the house that they couldn't see in the summer. Like, how is the roof looking? Is the snow just sitting there? Is it melting? How is the inside of the house? Is it warm? Is there a big draft? So there's, other things that you can determine in a house during the winter time. But I think I think in the spring we're going to see a lot more properties come on
Yeah,
the market.
I agree.
I think what you said there was a very crucial point about the weather, because I know it sounds kind of flighty, but real estate is really affected by weather. You're and because it's been so cold and we've had such bad weather, nobody wants to look for a house when it's cold and snowy and that outside. So I think normally, and I tell people, usually at the beginning of the year, the spring market usually starts when the weather gets better. So if the weather is really crappy in January and February, then we're not going to have a lot of sales. But as soon as the weather starts to pick up, we all feel better and we all want to go and make other decisions. It's just something that happens to us, especially when we have such a nice cold winter, that suddenly you're feeling better, you've got more, even just more confidence in the weather. And I think we will start to see,
Yeah.
things picking up.
I agree. I think the stats bear that out. That's a fact. That it's based on the weather.
Right, and we know with the past weather too that they called for people to stay home. We know that they shut down even in the boards, they shut them down and things like that in the offices. So it was definitely a factor more than just a little bit of snow.
Was there anything else that surprised you guys about the market last year?
I I think the other thing that surprised me was the condo market. And although they said, not a lot of sales, I actually did a fair bit of sales in the condo market. And it wasn't those tiny little units either, but they were units and basically to two different segments of the population. One was for first time buyers who were trying to get into the marketplace. It allowed them a time to get in, to be closer to the city if that's what they needed to be, because the prices down there were a little bit lower. And then there were those people that were downsizing from a home and they just wanted that lifestyle that they could sort of be in, not have to do anything, go down south or travel and just kind of lock up their house. So, although they said the sales were down, I did a fair bit personally in the condo market.
Yeah. And I think you're right. I think it really does depend on the type of condo. We sold a few last year and they didn't take a long time to sell, but they also weren't 350 or 400 square feet. Like, I think if we take out the ones that were built for investors, just specifically built for investors, those are the ones that are suffering, and those are the ones that they're having to change. The plan or the whole building got scrapped or whatever, they're revising the floor plans on some or turning them into purpose-built rentals. That's the condo market that was really hurting. But the condo market where, you had a bit of square footage or it was a decent size, that one isn't hurting as much for sure.
Yeah, I think we also have to look at the one bedroom as opposed to two bedroom and bigger, and also the 500 square foot compared to 800 square feet and bigger. And if when we look at the older ones, the prices are good on them right now, and it allows for an actual family starting out to start out in one of those. So Evelyn, I agree totally that it for a while there it was hard to put your family in your 600 square foot condo, and that's what we were getting most of. But now there are quite a few condos, older condos, that are available at a good price that families could actually get into if that's what they wanted, and just make sure they got themselves into the market and start and get themselves on the ladder.
Yeah. I think what do you guys think? I think that the landscape of the condo market is going to change going forward. Like the whole landscape is going to change because so many of these buildings were turned into purpose-built rentals, which we didn't have being built for years, right? So most people renting were forced to rent from a private person, like mom and pop or whatever, people who owned condos, they were forced to rent that way. And now there's so many that were turned into purpose-built rentals, and everywhere I drive, I see more and more of them being built, and so that's going to change the landscape a lot, where it's gonna bring down the prices, and the condo market itself is gonna drastically change because I don't think there will be that level of investing again that we've had before, because people will have options, which is great, because that's the biggest problem is that although people want to buy a house and they look at it and they go, "Man, like I pay more in my rent than I would pay in a mortgage. My problem is I don't have a down payment." Like people need somewhere to live that they can at least save money for that down payment. And I think that's what will happen. Like they will start the rents will be cheaper, so they'll start saving money for a down payment. I think that will make a difference, but I definitely think that whole landscape is going to change going forward.
I think so too, and I think they had built so many condos, and I think in terms of landscape, it was different because we had a lot of new immigrants, we had a lot of students. Take all of those out of the equation, take out all the investors who no longer are buying because, the cost of buying them and what their ROI just doesn't make sense financially to do so. We know that rents are going down, so they're not coming back, I don't think, anytime soon. And so what we see is they're not building right now new condos for sale. Okay, that's fine for now, but we still know that there's a lot of people who want to get into the market. And like I said, young people, old people, your lifestyle changes. It's still a viable alternative. Um, and in a couple of years, there's going to be nothing for them to choose. And if they've bought or they're building all these purpose built rentals, what's gonna happen in a couple of years? Are they gonna then change those purpose-built rentals into condos again? Like, I think we're seeing this little void right now, and I think it's gonna be another problem of on the different end of the spectrum in a couple of years. And and just even building at all, like, I don't see a lot of new developments being done, whether they're condo or whether they're resale. But weren't they just telling us that there's not enough houses to go around for the number of people that need them? And wasn't one of the government's, projects to ensure that more houses were being built? And right now, we've been sitting 1 year, we're going on 2 years where there's, like, nothing being built. So it's gonna catch up on the other end. And so, that's something to keep in mind too. If you're looking to get into the market, this might be the time, right? And don't they say someone, I forget who it is, some oil tycoon or something said,
Buy when there's blood in the streets. That's Warren Buffett.
it's like it's basically, you should be buying when nobody else is buying.
Exactly, that's Warren Buffett who says that. You buy when there's blood in the streets. I think you're absolutely right, Evelyn. It's going to be a problem in a few years from now, and then what's going to happen is people are gonna look back at what they paid and be like, "Oh my god, I can't believe I paid that price for that house." So even if the market are we at the bottom now? Who knows? I don't think I don't necessarily think we're at the bottom. I think we're really close to the bottom. However, if you bought now and it goes down a little bit in 5 years from now, and that's what real estate shouldn't be but we shouldn't be able to buy real estate and turn it around in 6 months and make a profit. Like, in my opinion, like, it shouldn't go up that quickly because it doesn't help anybody. People are going to look back, like, people look back at what their parents bought a house for, and they're like, "Oh my god, I can't believe that's what they paid." And that's what's gonna happen. And there's a lot of people who are gonna miss out again. And it's unfortunate because it's a hard thing for people to understand that this is when you're supposed to be buy low, sell high. So this is the time that you should be buying when the prices are, the prices are lower. You have that option.
I think that's what people always say, buy when everybody else is selling and sell when everybody else is buying, right? And that's the thing. You just want to make sure that you can't actually time the market, but you're not running with the crowd, right? Because when all the investors are in and all then the little people, mums and pops start getting in afterwards, that's usually the tail end.
Right, and why are buyers not entering the market? They're fearing that they're gonna overpay for the property. That's it, right? And so, like you said, it might go down a little bit more, but it is gonna go up, and I think we're close to the bottom, if not already at that. But I think that's the fear of overpaying has really adjusted their timelines where they're saying, "Well, maybe it's gonna go down more, so my timeline's not pushed, I can wait."
Mhm.
Right.
I do think there's a little bit more to it right now in terms of why people are not buying. I do think it is that people are afraid they're going to overpay. I also think there's a lot of other factors. Still some uncertainty. People are uncertain. Like the cost of living is very high right now in the GTA. Like I go to the grocery store to shop for myself, and I'm like, how are people feeding their family? Like it's incredible. Like some of the costs. So there's a lot of other pressures on people in terms of costs, and you have to be. I guess some people have to be leery. My point would be like, look, you have to live somewhere, right? So if you're living at home and you're not paying anything, then hell, keep doing that if you can keep doing it and put money away for when the time is right. But if you're paying rent somewhere, if that's a totally different story. Now is a good opportunity because yeah, you have to live somewhere. So and people say, well, then I've got to pay this and I've got to pay all these extras. Well, you're paying it anyway. If you're renting, you're covering those costs for the landlord. Make no mistake about it. You're paying their insurance, you're paying their maintenance fees, you're paying everything. So it's the same thing.
One of the things, I don't know if you guys remember, Remax used to have a poster that said, "You can't live in a mutual fund."
Exactly. Exactly. Yes, that's my point. You can't live in a mutual fund, right? So anyway, I think this was a great discussion. I think there's a lot of things that probably surprised a lot of people. I think our experience that the three of us have of having gone through this is the fourth downturn realistically that the four of us have gone three four of us the three of us have gone through, right? 1989, 2008, 2017, and this one very much mirrors 1989. The other two were a little bit more like they weren't as extreme as this one. And we had so many things this time that were impacting it, right? COVID, interest rates, and everything else. And then the tariffs right after that. And now like Snowmageddon this this year, right? Like people are not coming out. So it everything will change. And real estate is fundamental. Like I said, this market mirrors that market, which surprised me. And it's back to the basics. And what do you look at in the basics? You look at the fundamentals of real estate, location is important, all that kind of stuff. So I think it's just that's where we're at. It's cyclical. It's going to go back up again because people have to live somewhere.
Moving into 2026, what I think we're seeing is a little bit of a shift in sellers' expectations. They're still there where you still, go and talk to a seller and they say, but my neighbor sold for X. And you're like, when and how much? And it was like during COVID. I think they're understanding that, really it is the basics. In order to sell, you've got to be positioned properly. And positioned means that you need to be priced properly and presented properly. So you have to show your best foot forward and you have to be priced to be able to compete in the market, which I think, like we said, the listing and the competition inventory is going to rise. But I think sellers are beginning to see that, the ones that at least are selling. And as you said, we are still seeing some multiple offers.
When a great saying that I heard about today's market, especially for sellers, is that it's a price war and a beauty contest.
I love
And
that.
what it is.
So
And
true.
if we think back to 89 and how high the prices were to all of us at that time, that every one of us would have loved to be able to go back and buy 10 houses at 1989 prices. Well, we thought, oh my God, this is ridiculous because the prices have at least tripled since then. So I think that's what we all have to remember is that real estate is cyclical and that over time prices rise. And if you could go back and buy at any stage before now, except for maybe 2021, 2022, you would go buy back and buy multiple properties.
100%. Because you know what? The fact is they're not building any more land. You just have to keep going farther and farther out if you want, well, like houses are, you're not buying the house, you're buying the land. That's what gives it the value, right? What gives real estate value? It's the number one, it's the land. Number two, it's the house. The land is first though. So, right? What do they say? The best time to buy real estate was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. Exactly. So it's easy for us to say because we've seen this and we've lived through it and we've gone through it ourselves. And it's scary buying a house. Like we're realtors and it's scary for us too. But I think that if you have the right guides and you ask the right questions and you have, it's not so scary, but just make sure you align yourself with someone who's answering your questions, like helping you with all of these things that you're going through, all these feelings.
Right. And like I said earlier, it's really got to be the right time for you. If your job stable? If your job isn't stable, but you got a ton of money saved up for down payment, it still might not be the right time
Yeah.
for you, right? So just make sure that all the pieces of the puzzle are put together. Ask, like you said, the questions so that you can move forward and make an informed decision based on your individual circumstances, because it will be different for everybody.
So let's see what surprises 2026 will have for us.
I'm sure there will be some interesting ones, as always. Well, great to have you on the call again, ladies, and we'll see everybody on the next episode.